Good afternoon. My name is Tori Strasbaugh. I'm a Drexel intern at PA for Modern Courts. I'm joined with my fellow intern, Ray Sitar. I wanted to thank you all on behalf of the whole PMC team for joining us today at our workshop. And thank you so much to Rodney. He's somewhere in the building. He was just with us. And everyone at NKCDC for hosting us this afternoon. If you have the chance, please fill out the pre-presentation questionnaire, which is available in the Zoom chat or on the QR code on the screen. This survey really helps with our funding and makes it possible for us to continue putting on free programming just like this one. And for those who don't know, I'll provide a brief introduction to PMC. Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts is a nonpartisan nonprofit that envisions a Pennsylvania judicial system where everyone is assured fairness, accessibility, and respect. For 35 years, PMC has worked to educate all Pennsylvanians about courts and how to navigate them with confidence. PMC aims to provide resources to make that possible for all residents of the Commonwealth. While we do not offer legal advice today, we hope that this presentation will be informative and educational experience for everyone here.
And we are so honored to be joined by Pamela Gwaltney, Deputy Director of the City of Philadelphia's of Human Relations. There, Pamela directs the Compliance Division responsible for investigating discrimination complaints, and she is also a member of our board. A seasoned attorney, Pamela previously served as Assistant Chief Counsel for the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Prior to that, she was a trial She was a trial attorney with the Defender Association of Philadelphia, where she represented adult and juvenile clients in all aspects of the criminal and criminal court process. Pamela litigated misdemeanor and felony cases, resulting in many acquittals and or convictions on lesser charges. We are extremely grateful to Pamela for being here with us and sharing her extensive knowledge. We hope you all enjoy and thank you again for tuning in. And now I'd like to welcome Pamela.
All right, it looks like we're good to go. And so the subjects that we're going to be covering in the workshop are as follows: expungement, clean slate, and record CLA. So let's start out by talking about what expungement is. Expungement is the process to completely remove a criminal charge or conviction from a person's record. What that means is that the records are destroyed. An expungement order directs the court to treat the criminal conviction as if it had never occurred. Essentially, it removes it from the defendant's criminal record. Not all charges and convictions are subject to expungement, and we'll be talking more about which ones are. And typically, the expungement process takes place in the state courts. Generally, expungements are sought for cases in which the individual was not convicted. For example, the charges were dismissed, the charges were withdrawn, they were no pros by the district attorney, or you were found not guilty in diversion cases like ARD, where the individual who's on ARD has completed the sentence, and also summary convictions after 5 years without a can be expunged. So in Pennsylvania, where we would find the law regarding expungements is in Title 18, Section 9122 of the Crimes Code. Expungements are only available in certain circumstances. If somebody reaches 70 years of age and they've been arrest-free and they're prosecution-free for 10 years following a summary conviction. If an individual has been arrest-free and prosecution-free for 5 years following a summary conviction. A summary conviction constitutes most minor offenses such as disorderly conduct or harassment that usually result in a monetary fine. So a summary conviction is kind of like an individual getting a ticket. If someone is charged but is never convicted and that is withdrawn, no pros, or dismissed or not guilty, also eligible for expungement. And as I noted in the last slide, if somebody has completed a diversion program like ARD, which is accelerated rehabilitative disposition, or if, of course, if somebody has gotten a pardon. So let's talk a bit about why an expungement is important. Expungement is important because we all make mistakes. People make mistakes and they shouldn't have to pay for those mistakes for the rest of their lives. Our criminal justice system is based on meting out punishment that's supposed to be commensurate or equal to the crime that's committed. However, if the stigma of that punishment stays with that person for many, many years beyond when he, she, or they have finished a sentence, then the sentence is essentially indefinite and that person never has an opportunity to get their life together and do the things that they need to do to be a productive citizen. Also, our system only works if people can be rehabilitated. I mean, that is the goal of incarceration. And that means providing for second chances, sometimes third chances, particularly when crimes are low level and when that person has made a mistake. It's a one-time mistake. Expungements also help to level the playing field when it comes to opportunities in housing, in education, and employment. Oftentimes, having a criminal record can keep you from getting decent housing, keep you from getting a decent job, or continuing your education. Expungement and record clearing paves the way for improved job opportunities. And again, it increases the opportunity to further education and further housing opportunities. So these are the types of expungement. There's a full, there's a partial, there is expungement for summary charges and expungement for ARD. Let's talk about full expungement first. What's eligible for full expungement? Any charge that's disposed of as not guilty, that's withdrawn, that's dismissed, or is not prosecuted. That means that the district attorney has withdrawn for whatever reason. And all charges in that particular case have to meet the requirement in order for there to be a full expungement. So in other words, if there's 7 counts on that particular arrest, then all 7 of those charges have to be either disposed of as not guilty, they have to be withdrawn, they have to be dismissed, or no pros by the DA, right? So it's got to be all 7 in order for that full expungement to happen. Let's talk about a partial expungement then. So a partial expungement is going to apply where some charges resulted in a conviction and others were dismissed, withdrawn, found not guilty, or not prosecuted. So we can expunge the above charges, but the conviction remains. So if we use that 7-count arrest that I just mentioned and say 4 of them were no prossed, and then the other 3 the DA proceeded with, then the 4 that were null prossed could be eligible for a partial expungement. Expungement of summary charges. So as I mentioned, summary charges are non-traffic citations such as disorderly conduct, loitering, harassment, and some types of low-level thefts like retail theft that's the first time under a certain amount of money. And usually these convictions are going to result in a fine. In order to get expunged, no arrest charges or convictions can occur for a minimum of 5 years since the conviction of a summary offense. Let's talk a little bit about ARD, which again is the Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program. It is ordinarily a program that's reserved for first-time nonviolent offenders. After the completion of the program, there is not a conviction. There's not going to be an arrest record, and the individual is going to waive rights to a speedy trial. So what will happen is that the district attorney is going to postpone prosecution of the case during the time that the individual is on ARD. Acceptance of ARD probation is not a conviction, and it also isn't an acquittal of the charges. Therefore, a record check through the state police is going to reveal that the criminal charges are unreported or that the disposition of those charges is unreported. Now, after the completion of ARD, typically there's going to be, say, if we use a drug offense for an individual that's put into ARD, they might have to go to drug treatment. They might have to show up and give a urine test every week. And they'll also have to show up in court so that the judge and the district attorney can check to see what the status is and put that status on the record. So after a number of months of doing that, maybe 9 months of doing that, 12 months of doing that, then the individual is told that they've completed the program, and afterwards the record can be expunged by the court. And it usually takes about 9 to 12 months for that record to be expunged. If all fines and costs are paid and successful completion of the terms and conditions are there and set and it's proven, then they can proceed with the expungement. So how does the process get started? Obviously, the individual who's seeking the expungement has to know what the criminal record is. So go get a copy of the criminal record. Once you get that criminal record, take a look at it. Make sure that everything is accurate. If it's not accurate, you might want to go back and talk to your attorney to get some information, or get your attorney to help you try to figure out what's going on, what's in the record. You also want to see whether or not some of the offenses have been removed automatically under the clean slate law. And then for any remaining offenses, check again to see that those that should have been automatically sealed were or were not. Check if any offenses that were eligible for expungement and or limited access have been handled appropriately. And then if necessary, go ahead and file a petition. So finding out whether or not you have a criminal record. We talked about it's important to go ahead and get a copy of it. These are some resources for getting a copy of your criminal record. So you go to UJS portal, that's PA Courts. You would find that tab for case information. You'll see in the corner of the screen where the files are, kind of shows you what it's going to look like if you go to that website. You're going to click Criminal Court of Common Pleas. You're going to search by the participant name. That would be the name of the individual whose record you're looking for. If it's your own name, put in your own name. If it's someone else, if you're working with someone, you're a social worker or an advocate or an ally, put that person's name in and go ahead and do the search. It's also available for you to find some pictures explaining it on the Clean Slate PA website, which might be a bit more helpful. Then you have to get the background check from the PA police. It's $20. This is the website there, epatch.pa.gov/home. Or you can also call the helpline at 1-888-783-7972. Requesters who require or desire a criminal history for an expungement process are going to contact the county court to see if an individual access and review is needed. So the individual and access review is going to provide the person who's requesting with an entire criminal history. That's going to include non-conviction data, which many courts are now requiring for an expungement of a criminal record. So step 2, after you found out whether or not you've got the criminal record, you've got that criminal record in hand. Second step is to make sure all outstanding fines and costs are paid. This is going to be an important part of the process as well. To make payments, the individual who is seeking the expungement is going to have to contact the courthouse where the conviction occurred, asking the courthouse to enter into a payment plan if there are still fines and costs remaining. And for some cases, individuals can pay online at Fines, Costs, and Restitution, and that's pacourts.us. To request a fee waiver, individual has to contact the courthouse where they were convicted. So if it happened in Philly, have to go down to the CJC, go to the office there to ask how you get a fee waiver. Step 3, file a petition for expungement. So with the petition process, it has to be filed at the Court of Common Pleas where the charge was brought. There has to be a separate petition required for each arrest. There are going to be fees, and they may be both state and county fees. After it's filed, the matter is going to be put before a judge with the local district attorney's office giving an opportunity to object. So there will be some cases where the district attorney is going to have an objection. They'll put those objections on the record, and the judge is going to be the one to make the decision after a hearing. If it's granted, the order is going to go to the appropriate agencies, and those agencies will take the appropriate action depending upon whether it is an order for an expungement or if it's a limited access. And just so you know, the process is not necessarily fast. It can take about 9 months or more. So here's additional information. And I believe that for those who are here, you're going to get an opportunity to have a copy of these slides emailed. So you'll have this information. This is what the form of petition is going to look like. Just so you become familiar. At the top, it's going to have petition for expungement pursuable to PA Rule of Criminal Procedure 490. And you'll see all the information that's required there: name, date of birth, social security number. And as you see under case information, it's very specific. It's going to want to know the judge. If it's outside of Philadelphia, the magisterial district court number, the date of arrest, the citation. So that's why it's important to have that copy of the criminal history. There's also a requirement for a form of order. This is here. And as you can see, that order would then be completed if the expungement is granted. The individual filing may also need a cover sheet. You'll need to attach the criminal record to the petition, attach copies of the case disposition, attach a copy of the docket, along with that certified check or money. With regard to copies and signatures, the individual applying for the expungement has to sign the original form, make 4 copies of it. 3 copies are going to go to the court, and 1 copy you should keep for your records, or whoever you're filing for should definitely keep a copy for your own records. If it's in Philadelphia, where we're located, it's going to be the Office of Judicial Records. That's going to be in the CJC, 1301 Filbert Street, room 310. If you have any questions there, ojrcriminal@courts.phila.gov, or call that number 215-683-7700. So let's talk a bit about cases that can be sealed. First, we start with the felonies. Felonies after 10 years without another felony or misdemeanor conviction can be sealed. And that includes including drug crimes, theft crimes, retail theft, receiving stolen property, trespass, forgery and fraud crimes. That includes access device fraud, bad checks, ID theft, welfare fraud, and criminal mischief. The next category of cases that can be sealed are misdemeanors after 7 years without a felony or misdemeanor conviction. That means another felony or misdemeanor conviction. And included in this category are drug possession, theft, DUI, simple assault, disorderly conduct, harassment, terroristic threats, recklessly endangering another person, resisting arrest, possession of an instrument of crime, and prostitution. Let's talk a little bit about the Clean Slate Law, which took effect in 2019 and was amended in 2023. It's important that you know that in 2019, Pennsylvania further expanded expungement laws to provide automatic sealing of eligible offenses. And I want to emphasize automatic sealing because it means you don't have to do anything in order to get that to happen. So automatic sealing of eligible offenses in certain circumstances after a certain amount of time has passed and that individual has had no further convictions. So what's included here are offenses that were charged without conviction, summary convictions after 5 years, many second and third degree misdemeanors, as well as some ungraded offenses that are punishable by 2 years or less in prison. Convictions must be at least 10 years old or 7 years old, felony versus misdemeanor. An individual must be conviction-free for 10 years and 7 years, again, felony for the 10 years, 7 years misdemeanor. And all restitution has to be paid on the case. I think that's the most challenging aspect of this is that monetary requirement, that restitution has to be paid on the case, but it does have to be paid. Individuals convicted of a certain felony drug offenses and sentenced to prison for 30 plus minimum and or 60 plus month max, or certain violent first degree misdemeanors are not going to be eligible. They will not be eligible under that category. Individuals with 4 or more second degree misdemeanors or higher, again, also not eligible. And individuals with 2 or more M1 convictions or higher are not eligible for clean slate. Clean slate limited access is also not available for offenses that involve danger to a person, offenses against the family, offenses involving firearms or other dangerous articles, sexual offenses and sex offender registration, cruelty to animals, and CMOM, otherwise known as corruption of the morals of a minor. You're not eligible for clean slate limited access if you've ever been convicted of the following: 2 or more offenses punishable by imprisonment of more than 2 years. And those are generally going to be first degree misdemeanors and more serious offenses. 4 or more offenses that each carry a penalty of at least 1 year. You're not going to be eligible for a clean slate if you've had a conviction for indecent exposure, sexual intercourse with an animal, failure to comply with sexual registration requirements, weapons or implements for escape, abuse of corpse, and any type of paramilitary training. Let's distinguish and talk about a little bit the difference between expungement versus sealing. Sealing, sometimes referred to as in Pennsylvania as limited access, is a process where criminal records are sealed so that they cannot be viewed by the public. This differs from expungement. Okay, expungement removes something from a record entirely, in that it remains on the record, but it can only be viewed by limited people. Example, who can view it? Law enforcement, state licensing agencies can still view, but in most cases, potential employers and landlords are not going to be able to see it. A sealed record cannot be seen or considered by the general public, by landlords, schools, most occupational licensing boards, and most employers, right? Because most employers don't use FBI background checks. The ones that use FBI background checks will be able to see it, but again, most don't, so most won't see it. Law enforcement purposes, if it's the police, if it's prosecutors, criminal courts, they're going to be able to see it. For gun ownership and use applications, including permits to carry and Act 235, they will be able to see it. Immigration officials will be able to see it. International travel, other court cases, sometimes in dependency or custody court or protection from abuse cases, they'll be able to see it. And admission to the bar to be a lawyer, they'll be able to see it. Limited situations where federal law requires a background check for employment, they will be able to see it. Now, FBI records are going to show sealed cases, but they're only going to be considered where required by federal law. So if federal law requires it, they will take a look at it and consider it. So how do you get a record sealed? With clean slate automatic sealing, your record may be sealed, as I mentioned, through an automated process. So it's going to be automatic and you won't have to do anything. The individual won't have to do anything. Records can also be sealed after petitions filed and granted in court. Some convictions like M2 simple assault can be sealed only by petition. Can people access their own court documents after a record is sealed under clean slate? Yes. Unlike with expungement, where paper court documents are physically destroyed along with electronic records, sealed case files are simply unavailable to the public. Individuals can request their own court records, and that includes certified copies of case dispositions, even after a case has been sealed. And this happens at the courthouse, wherever the prosecution occurred. So again, in Philadelphia, it would be at the Criminal Justice Center. In other words, individuals or their advocates can still see the case information from the FBI or other background checks. That includes docket numbers, DC numbers, to identify and request official court records that might be required for immigration purposes. So there will be some purposes where those documents will be available and necessary to get your hands on. Other similar processes in getting a record expunged are ARD. And I've already shared with you that ARD allows for probation without a conviction. And so the offense does not remain on the record. It's sometimes used for DUI offenses, some marijuana offenses. We know that Section 17 is essentially a drug program where that the court administers, where individuals come back for a period of time to see what their progress is in drug treatment, and also get tested to see whether or not they're clean for drugs. And at the conclusion of that, the record will be expunged. Now, pardons are the ultimate, right? Because pardons essentially ask for forgiveness for a past offense. It can be granted by the governor. It's a lengthy process, but it's as if the individual doesn't have a record. They've been completely absolved or forgiven of whatever it is they were convicted of. So I alluded to it earlier, the key point is making sure that restitution and fines are paid, because that's going to be crucial to getting an expungement. In all instances, not paying court costs or fines are going to prevent the process from moving forward. Under the clean slate law, sealing is only going to occur if the individual has paid all court-ordered financial obligations. So for sealing, pay your restitution first. If a record is eligible for sealing, then you might want to pay restitution first before paying other fees. The case will be eligible for sealing once the restitution is paid, along with a small additional fee, even if other court fees aren't paid. So if an individual owes restitution and other court fees, they can ask the judge on the case for permission to pay the restitution first. Also, you can talk to your lawyer about it, or probation or parole officer about it. So here's a very long list of very good expungement resources. On here, you'll find Community Legal Services, you'll find Pulse, which is Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equity. They frequently have programs to explain this process and to help you through the process. It's a very daunting, it's a very challenging process to do on your own. So make sure that you're getting some help, help people that you know do it. But there are resources out there. It's really important to do your best to get that record expunged.